Welcome to my channel. Please subscribe and stay tuned.
I Wonder What is a Moon Mission by WSJ.
A moon mission is a trip to the moon using a spacecraft. Scientists and astronauts go on moon missions to learn more about the moon and test new technology.
Ready to ride the most powerful rocket NASA has ever launched.
Reed, Victor, Christina, and Jeremy.
We are going for our families.
We are going for our teammates.
We are going for all humanity.
Engines lit. 4, 3, 2, 1. Booster ignition. And liftoff. The crew of Artemis 2 now bound for the moon.
Houston integrity. 3, 2.
This is a test flight, and so every single system aboard Orion is getting tested by humans for the first time. That is Earth in the center of your screen from the Orion spacecraft, looking back at all of us.
Houston is go for TOI. Put this Earth to the moon. We do not leave Earth. We choose it.
The four of us have lived in this moon our entire lives, and the way we are responding to what we are seeing out the window, it's just like we're a bunch of little kids up here, we cannot get enough of this.
That is something we have never seen before.
It's hard to wrap your mind around. I mean that sincerely. It really bends your mind.
As we prepare to go out of radio communication, to all of you down there on Earth and around Earth, we love you from the moon.
Just seeing Tycho, there's mountains to the north, you can see Copernicus, Rainier Gamma, it's just everything from the training, but in 3 dimension and absolutely unbelievable.
Kathy Moonjoy. Superlative thumbs up.
We just went sci-fi.
I think there is enough for all. The purpose of humanity is joy and lifting one another up, creating together.
This is a whole bunch of nothing, this thing we call the universe. You have this oasis, this beautiful place that we get to exist together.
Well, I'll tell you, I mean, after ignition, to me, the moment that I'm going to be most excited for is splashdown. There's no question about that. Good shoots coming down off the West Coast.
And there go the first series of parachutes.
And Houston, we're visual 2 drones out the window.
Main chute deployed.
We most importantly choose this moment to challenge this generation and in the next to make sure this record is not long-lived.
This is a relay race.
It takes an army to pull a mission together like this, right? Across all 10 of our centers, all of our commercial partners, the international partners that come together to make this possible.
There are different kinds of moon missions. Flyby mission, a spacecraft flies past the moon and takes pictures. Orbiter mission, a spacecraft circles the moon to map its surface. Lander mission, a spacecraft lands on the moon and studies rocks and soil. Crewed mission, astronauts travel to the moon, explore it, and return safely to Earth.
Over 150 moons orbit the solar system's planets, and one of those moons calls Earth home. The moon was formed about 4.5 billion years ago when, according to one theory, the Earth slammed into another early planet. Debris from this collision began to orbit Earth and accumulated, forming today's moon. The moon is the fifth largest natural satellite in the solar system, with a diameter just under the width of China. It's composed of an iron-rich core, plus a mantle and crust containing minerals made of magnesium, oxygen, and silicon. The moon's surface was once geologically active and covered in an ocean of magma. But today, apart from traces of water ice, the surface is completely covered in dust and rocky debris. Countless craters dot the moon's surface, each formed by objects such as meteoroids, comets, and asteroids crashing onto the moon. The largest crater, the South Pole Aitken Basin, spans across a quarter of the moon's surface and is nearly deep enough to fit Mount Everest inside. The moon orbits our planet at an average distance of 30 Earths. It rotates at the same rate that it revolves. So as it revolves around our planet, the same side of the moon faces the Earth at all times. From the Earth's surface, we can observe 8 distinct, traditionally recognized stages of the moon's illumination. Called lunar phases, they have been observed for thousands of years and even provided the basis for the earliest calendars. For most of human history, the moon could only be studied from afar. But on July 20th, 1969, humans were able to close that distance with the American spaceflight mission Apollo 11.
That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
It placed humans on the moon for the very first time, bringing our understanding of Earth's only natural satellite one step closer.
People send moon missions to learn how the moon was formed, study moon rocks and dust, test new spacecraft and technology, prepare for future missions to the moon and even Mars. NASA has completed a moon mission. It was called Artemis II. It took off on April 1st. Its crew lifted off from NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida. The mission ended on April 10th. The spacecraft's capsule returned to Earth. It gently landed in the ocean. Artemis II was historic. It was the first crewed mission to the moon in 54 years. There were 4 astronauts aboard. They traveled 252,756 miles from home. That's farther from Earth than anyone had traveled before. NASA Administrator Jared Isaacman called the mission the greatest adventure in human history. The 4 astronauts on Artemis II are Reed Wiseman, Victor Glover, Christina Cook, Jeremy Hansen. These 4 astronauts traveled far into space on the Artemis II mission. astronauts flew together on the Artemis II mission, traveling farther from Earth than most people have ever gone. They traveled around the moon in the Orion spacecraft and then returned safely to Earth. Artemis II is a mission that sends 4 astronauts around the moon to test the spacecraft before future astronauts land on the moon. It is an important step in returning humans to the moon.
Flying into the future, Artemis is a series of missions. The first was in 2022. These missions will enable human exploration at the moon and future missions to Mars. That's according to NASA. What's next? NASA hopes to fly Artemis 3 in Earth's orbit in 2027.
That mission will test NASA's lunar landers. Artemis 4 and 5 could land on the moon in 2028. With Artemis 2, NASA is closer to that goal.
Artemis 3 project explained. The Artemis project is a NASA space program divided into 3 stages. Its primary mission is to bring the next generation of humans to our natural satellite and start the new space age with a lunar base in which humans will inhabit and the construction of spacecraft that will take humans beyond the moon. Are you ready for the big trip? Let's get started. The Artemis project is divided into the following 3 stages. Artemis 1 will consist of an uncrewed flight test of the Space Launch System (SLS) and the Orion spacecraft around the moon. Artemis 2 will be the first flight test with 4 astronauts who will take off from Earth using the SLS Space Launch System and orbit the moon inside the Orion spacecraft. And Artemis 3, the most important mission that will carry the Human Landing System (HLS), will place the next generation of astronauts on the lunar surface, including the first woman. We talked about the first 2 stages of the Artemis 1 and Artemis 2 projects in previous videos. In today's video, we will focus on the 3rd stage of the project, Artemis 3. If you have not yet seen the previous videos about Artemis 1 and 2, check them out, and you will understand what Artemis 3 will consist of. Background. With the Artemis 1 and Artemis 2 stages, all preparations will be made for astronauts' arrival on the lunar surface. Once the necessary supplies for the extended stay of humans on the moon have been completed, the date of takeoff of Artemis 3 will be established. It's currently estimated that if everything goes according to plan, it could be expected that Artemis 3 will take place before the year 2030. Artemis 3. Like the previous 2 stages, Artemis 3 will be carried out with NASA's SLS rocket, which will take off from Launch Complex 39B at NASA's modernized spaceport at Kennedy Space Center in Florida. It will carry the cryogenic propulsion stage (ICPS) and the Orion space capsule, with 4 astronauts to land into living being. The ICPS will be in charge of moving the spacecraft to the moon and returning it will last 2 days. Once in orbit, the astronauts will dock directly to the gateway, which will consist of an advanced space base missions are planned to last only 4 days. For now, it has been planned that the HLS modules will have an initial capacity to accommodate 2 astronauts comfortably. Still, as the systems are updated and the equipment is improved, it is expected to have a sufficient ability to accommodate 4 astronauts. The HLS will land the next 2 astronauts who will make history, a man and a woman. They will be the ones who start the new space age. Extravehicular missions, EVA. During their stay on the lunar surface, the 2 astronauts who are selected to descend will have 4 extravehicular missions, EVA. 1. Collect at least 35 kilograms of lunar samples to be studied on Earth. 2. Install ground monitoring and survey systems for better analysis of the moon's soil. 3. Search for deposits of water or ice in lunar craters. 4. Carry out expeditions to define an area in which to establish a lunar base. For their part, the 2 astronauts who stay at the gateway will also have work to do, mainly everything related to the study of the surface to determine the area in which the next mission will land and maintain contact with NASA, informing at all times the progress of the mission. Exploratory Extravehicular Mobility Unit, XEMU. Astronauts descending to the moon will use the new spacesuit called the Extravehicular Exploration Mobility Unit, XEMU, different from those used during the Apollo program. The main advantage of this new suit will provide, in addition to the elegant design, is mobility. One of the main problems manifested by the first astronauts who went to the moon was their dissatisfaction with the mobility provided by the spacesuits, since these were too rigid. They could barely move their limbs freely, and it was so difficult for them to take steps that it was easier to jump than to walk on the lunar surface. However, that was also due to the low gravity of the moon. The new XEMU suit provides greater freedom to move limbs, as well as a transparent housing that gives greater visibility of the environment. And it is expected that these new suits will allow astronauts to perform more complex tasks and install several types of equipment that will be of vital importance to place a future base on the moon. These suits are still in the testing phase, although they were already officially presented by NASA as the suits that will be used in spacewalks. The ascent. 3 days after the descent of the astronauts on the lunar surface, it is expected that they have fulfilled the 4 EVAs. On the 4th day, the astronauts will put on the XEMU suits for the last time to carry out cleaning activities. They will consist of fastening well to the ground all the equipment they have installed, as well as taking with them those tools that they will need or that do not need to stay on the lunar surface. The objective is that when the ascent module takes off, it does not throw objects that could be dangerous for future missions into the air. On the moon, gravity is only a third of the gravity of the Earth, and there still is no air. So when throwing anything, it can travel a much greater distance than the distance it would travel on Earth. If the following missions have to land in an area close to theirs, they shouldn't have to run into some misplaced instrument or objects that could hinder the descent of the ships. After the cleanup, the astronauts will board the ascent module to reconnect with the gateway and reunite with their other 2 companions in the orbit of the moon. Safe return to Earth. In the gateway, the 4 astronauts will make all the preparations, enter the Orion spacecraft, and undock to start their journey back to Earth. The Orion spacecraft will be propelled by the Cryogenic Propulsion Stage, ICPS, with an initial impulse that will pull them out of the gravitational influence of the moon and take them straight to Earth in a flight that will last 4 days. Once they reach the orbit of the Earth, the ICPS will decouple from the Orion spacecraft so that it enters safely into the Earth's atmosphere. During the descent to Earth, the Orion spacecraft will deploy a series of parachutes that will reduce the speed from more than 20,000 kilometers per hour to only 3 kilometers per hour. Finally, with retro thrusters, the spacecraft will reduce its rate to 0 and fall on the Earth's surface with the 4 astronauts safe and sound. The new space age. Undoubtedly, the next generation of astronauts will mark a new step in the history of humanity. Unlike the first time humans arrived on the moon to prove that the nation possessed the most advanced technology, now it is about unifying the ambitions and efforts of the whole world to explore the unknown and make way for the future. The Artemis project will start the new space age for humanity,
and the arrival of the next humans on the moon is not the end of this, but rather the beginning. Artemis 3 is planning a regular series of trip missions onto the moon and its surroundings, and the first stage is to carry humans safely. At first it will be once or twice a year, but as soon as the ships are perfected, a series of launches is expected monthly. This new generation of astronauts will be in charge of laying the foundations of the next lunar base, which will house the human race permanently on our natural satellite, just as the International Space Station currently does in Earth's orbit. The lunar base. To build the lunar base, international collaboration will be necessary with other space agencies and commercial partners that will provide equipment and resources for the search for elements that are vital for the permanence of humans on the moon. The first of these is water. There can be no life without water, and humans know it. We need to take advantage of the reserves of frozen water found in the craters of the south pole of the moon. The first missions will take care of that, and if they manage to extract and take advantage of that water for their needs, it will be a massive leap for future human settlements on the moon. The next element necessary for the lunar base will be oxygen. However, it is possible to extract oxygen from the water through an electrochemical process known as electrolysis. This process requires overwhelming amounts of electricity, which will not be available at first. So if it's possible to extract oxygen directly from the minerals deposited on the lunar surface, it will be much easier. Finally, heavy metals will be the basis on which the lunar economy moves. Creating a base on the moon seeks to revitalize humanity's spirit of exploration and helps us create reserves of materials that are scarce on Earth and abundant on the moon. At some point in the future, these materials will be so low on the planet, and perhaps it will be cheaper to look for them on the moon than to extract them deep within the Earth. Under this scenario, large private companies will be in charge of providing the equipment and resources to start space mining. This will lay the foundations for the next step of the Artemis project. Mars. Mars is not the closest planet to Earth. That title belongs to Venus. However, Venus is a lake of fire where no living organism can exist, while Mars is much less severe for life. The Red Planet will be the next target in the ambition of human exploration. Currently, we already have it in our sights, and we cannot wait to go and visit it, but first we must make all the preparations. Mars is very far from the Earth. Even with the ships that will be used to go to the moon, the average trip will last half a year. Half a year in deep space is a long time. Astronauts who go will need training and experience. Likewise, the ships will have to be equipped with all the equipment and supplies necessary to sustain humans for so long. It is being planned that the gateway that will be used in missions to the moon will also be used as a space shuttle in which astronauts heading to Mars can refuel, restock food, and everything necessary to undertake their journey to where no human has been before. The lunar base, gateway, and all missions to the moon with the Artemis project will be critical to the success of future missions to Mars, laying all the groundwork for perfecting spacecraft and training astronauts to withstand longer stays in deep space. The Red Planet awaits us. Everything is ready and underway. The next space age of humanity is about to begin.
Thank you for watching. Please subscribe and stay tuned.